Welcome back, guys. This is the third episode of the Method of Control series, where I'll be discussing the second method of control. Now, if you haven't seen the first episode, I highly recommend you go and watch it before you watch this one, because I've explained in the first episode what I'm doing or what I'm not doing specifically in this episode. So as I'm going through this episode, you'll probably be screaming at the screen saying, "Why aren't you doing it like this?" Well, I explain why I'm not doing it the way you would expect me to do it in the first episode. So rather than me repeating myself, if you go back and watch the first episode, the introduction, then that will explain what I'm doing now. Okay, so moving on to the actual explanation. So in this one, we'll be basically using the battle line system, but with the follow system at the same time. So it's a combination of both the follow system and the battle line system. So you want your battleships in the front, and then you're going to want your battle cruisers behind, so they're already following. But if they weren't, you would control right click, then you want your heavy cruisers or your light cruisers, depending on how you're using them, to follow onto the back of them, and then your light cruisers onto the back of them, and then your destroyers onto the back of your light cruisers. Okay, so now this will create a normal battle line, but obviously it will be grouped by ship type rather than all of the ships being intermingled. Each ship type will be its own separate little group. Okay, so they've kind of organized themselves. So this is a quicker way to do the follow line, basically. So you don't have to follow every single ship. So if you've got like a huge navy, huge fleet of like 20 ships, you're not going to have 20 separate tabs down here. You're only going to have 5 tabs, one for each type of ship. So it's a lot easier to see what's going on down at the bottom of the screen. And the major pro to this is you can say, like, you want your battleships to be shooting at a target. You can select all your battleships in one click of a button and then select the target that you want to shoot. If you want your battle cruisers to shoot, then you can do the same. If you want, say, your destroyers to shoot torpedoes at something, then you can select all of your torpedoes, tell them to shoot at a specific target. So you can easily select different groups of each class much more easily than you would do if they were all just in a follow line, where they would all just be spread out across the bottom of the screen if you had like 15 or 20. So that's its major benefit over a simple follow line. So the cons to this, there are a lot of them. There are a lot of cons to this. So basically, I don't know why these aren't separating, but they probably will do in time. So the first con to this is, compared to a normal battle line where they're all in one group, if one ship gets damaged, say this battleship here, he's not going to fall back all the way to the back of the line. He's only going to fall back to the back of his ship class, which will then create a blockage for any ship behind them, because they'll obviously be damaged and going slow, which will then slow up all of the ships that are behind. So that's like the major con to this compared to a standard battle line. So you can just deselect them, detach them from the group, then that'll fix this problem, but it means that you'll have to keep doing that for every time the ship gets damaged. So another con to this is if, say, this ship is being targeted by a torpedo, you can't just select this ship and move him out of the line, and you can't rudder him either, because he's not the lead ship of his class. If you try and rudder, the lead ship will rudder. If you try and select him and move him out, the lead ship will move in the direction that you select him. So that's the major con to this as well. Not being able to easily select. You have to manually detach, then you can select him, and then if you want to put them back into a battle line, you've then got to select them both and attach them again. So Division 6 and Division 1. So you then have to you want this one to be the lead one, so it gets messy. You want this to attach to the lead one, basically. So yeah, it's not convenient to dodge torpedoes at all. So another issue with it, as I mentioned in the previous episode, if, say for example, you want this guy's under attack and you want to put smoke on him, if you try and put it on one ship, it puts it on everyone in that class, which is obviously bad if only this ship is getting targeted. You don't want everyone to pop the smoke because it's a waste. Another thing is, if you're using ships in a battle line and you're doing a torpedo run, if you're getting close to the enemy and you get damaged and you automatically fall back, you might end up falling back when you don't want to. So like, you wanted to do a torpedo run, you just needed to go a little bit further, but they ended up falling back. You weren't paying attention, so you didn't have time to detach them and select them individually, move them into the line that you want. So yeah, automatic fallbacks can be a pain, especially with torpedo ships. Another thing with the falling back, if this ship wanted to fall back and ships behind them were shooting torpedoes in this direction, quite often they will fall back. So because he's got a wide turning circle, I'll show you, his turning circle's that wide, so he's going to be turning while falling back all the way into all of the potential torpedoes that you've just shot. So the falling back system can cause huge amounts of friendly fire. And then the other major con to this, which is the same as the previous video, is if you've got a lot of ships at the beginning of a battle, they can quite often get stuck with the collision avoidance, trying to organise themselves. Now there's a little less chance of it happening with ship classes like this, but it still happens, and you can end up with a clump of your ships miles away from the combat. So it's not particularly suitable for large quantities of ships. If you've got a huge quantity of ships, you're definitely going to want to use a different formation, mainly just to organise yourself at the start of the battle. So yeah, they're the pros and cons to this. The pros weren't particularly huge. Basically, you can just select a group of ships easily. And obviously the cons were, there was a lot of them. So I wouldn't recommend using this over a follow line. You may as well just use a follow line, and then if you want to select multiple of a ship, then you can just select them like that, or you can just select them with control and click. So yeah, this is just an alternate method of using it, mainly to make the bottom of the screen more tidy, a bit easier to focus on what's happening. Okay, so that's the end of the explanation. If you want to stick around to watch the rest of the video, then you're more than welcome. Again, I haven't designed these ships. This was just an auto design, so I don't know if they're any good or not. But if you want to stick around to see the conclusion of the battle, then go for it. If not, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.